Council, and I give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, distinguished Madam President. First and foremost, I would like to say that we have taken note of your reference to the note of the 507, but I'd like to point out that that note is not a Security Council resolution, and the provisions it contains are not binding, rather they are recommendations. Naturally, we must be brief. Brevity is of the utmost importance, as we know, but in some situations that is not always possible. Nonetheless, Madam President, given that today presents the first opportunity for you to delve into the discussion of the Syrian chemical case in the Council, I will, if you'll allow me, provide a brief, but I'm sure very useful overview of the history of this topic and its discussions in this Council. Syria voluntarily joined the OPCW. Under Russia's instigation, it complied with the initial declaration under the Chemical Weapons Convention and disposed of all its chemical weapons stockpiles. In 2014, the Syrian chemical warfare program was fully shut down, chemical weapons stockpiles were eliminated, and chemical weapons production facilities were destroyed. The OPCW repeatedly confirmed this. Since then, Syria has fully complied with and cooperated with the OPCO, its technical secretariat, including the declaration assessment team, as well as with all investigative missions on the ground. I would like to particularly note that the fact-finding mission was invited at Syria's own initiative. Unfortunately, the hopes that all this would help to leave behind accusations against the leadership of the Syrian Arab Republic regarding the use of chemical weapons against its own population were not realized. Throughout all of these years, a number of states continue to use the chemical card as an instrument to exert pressure on the Syrian government. Time and time again, they launch extremely serious accusations against Damascus, citing unconvincing evidence, such as videos from social networks or testimony from knowingly biased witnesses, or even crudely fabricating facts. Meanwhile, any counter-arguments provided not only by the Syrian Arab Republic and Russia, but by a number of independent experts and organizations are roundly rejected by them without any sort of clear explanation. The OPCW Technical Secretariat has unfortunately taken on the role of simply repeating the anti-Syrian sentiments of Western states, and practically from the very beginning began to rubber stamp reports in line with that position. The evidential base for this has always been lacking full of technical inconsistencies that often contradict all laws of physics and logic. There have been shells falling into ventilation shafts, somehow matching their diameter perfectly, or unguided bombs, instead of free falling, magically hit targets that were as far as 5 kilometers away, or white helmets collected sarin samples practically with their bare hands. The Technical Secretariat is not even trying to hold up the appearance of complying with normal practices and procedures for collecting evidence, including the principle of the chain of custody. And when certain free thinkers in the ranks of its staff sounded the alarm and began to refuse to participate in direct forgery, the leadership of the Technical Secretariat resorted to repressions, intimidations, distortion of facts, and repressed dissenters in every way possible. As a result, the amount of evidence of direct fabrication, manipulation, and internal irregularities within the Technical Secretariat has passed the critical point. The more glaring examples of this are egregious irregularities in the investigation of the incidents in Hanche-Hunan in April 2017 and in Duma in April 2018. I urge anyone who is interested in forming an objective view on that subject to study the materials provided by independent experts, Mr. Postel and Mr. Mate, during the ARIA formula meeting on September 28th of last year. We disseminated those as official documents of the Security Council and the General Assembly. I also ask you to take note of the testimony of the former OPCW inspector who directly participated in the Duma investigation, Jan Henderson, regarding the fact that the Technical Secretariat leadership fudged the conclusions on the use of chemical weapons in Syria following direct pressure from Western countries. I won't go into detail regarding the activity of the investigation and identification team, which is illegitimate in and of itself because its establishment was pushed through in the Executive Council in violation of the principle of consensus and of the Chemical Weapons Convention. It is therefore unsurprising that its final products don't stand up to criticism due to their political bias, factual unreliability, and technical incompetence. We have already stated our detailed position and our arguments regarding the IIT report on the Al Latema incident in 2017 have been disseminated as official documents of the Security Council back in June of last year. We would not be surprised in the least if in the near future new made-to-order pseudo-revelations of the IIT emerged, which would be just as unconvincing as the Al Latema report. This is similar to a new book coming out in a series that readers are already very tired of. It's not going to cause any sensation here now. However, the efforts and endeavors of the IIT are just the tip of the iceberg. The root of the problem is that the Syrian chemical case has long become an instrument for our Western colleagues, which they use to punish the undesirable authorities in Damascus. So it's useless to seek any connection to the use or non-use of chemical weapons in them. This is directly evident when we examine the draft accusatory anti-Syrian decision of the Executive Council of the OPCW. That decision was adopted by the Executive Council with the minimally required number of voices in July of last year. It requires the Syrian Arab Republic to do something that is impossible to declare allegedly remaining chemical weapons and related facilities, which it simply does not possess. Of course, Syria was unable to comply with that ultimatum. As a result, our Western colleagues are now trying to initiate a process to strip it of its rights in the OPCW. We hope that the majority of delegations at the Conference of State Parties in April will refuse to participate in this provocation, and the repressive decision initiated by Western countries will not pass. It is, after all, completely clear that there's absolutely nothing unusual in the Syrian chemical weapons case in general, and the initial declaration in particular exists, nothing that would require such steps. During the last meeting, we already noted that the dialogue between Damascus and the OPCW on these issues is absolutely normal and routine. The very same nuances in the context of the initial declarations had to be addressed by a number of states, including Western states. I won't keep expounding on this topic, although there is a wealth of examples of using the Technical Secretariat to advance the above-mentioned political agenda. And there's more and more evidence of this. They have already dealt a fatal blow to the reputation of the OPCW as an international organization. And I expect new accusations against us to be heard in statements from our Western colleagues in an example to erode and undermine the authority of the OPCW. Those accusations have no basis. Russia, on the contrary, is fighting to restore the good name of that organization and trying to get its Director General, Fernando Arias, to answer questions that are on everyone's mind. In conclusion, Madam President, I'd like to stop here and draw your attention to the fact that with the arrival in New York of the new permanent representative of the Syrian Arab Republic, His Excellency Bassam Sabaga, who for many years represented Syria in the OPCW and who possesses exhaustive expertise when it comes to all the nuances of Syria's interaction with that entity. The Council now has an excellent opportunity to obtain information about the real situation regarding the Syrian chemical weapons file firsthand. And this includes progress regarding closing issues related to chemical weapons in Syria that were achieved in Hague. He is the best person to speak about this. There can be no better person, and I call on you to pay very close attention to his statement at the end of our meeting. Thank you, Madam President.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for his statement.